Welcome along to a sunny Silverstone Grand Prix circuit for round 12 of the 2023 Spectrum Medical Toyo Tyres 7 Race Series. A colossal grid of cars which all qualified yesterday but are taking to the circuit for the first time today for the first of two races that we've got to look forward to. Let me just guide you through some of the grid. I don't think we're going to get the opportunity to go through it all. Justin Armstrong qualifies on pole position. It's split into two separate classes, the 420s and the 310Rs. There'll be about a 20-second delay between each batch of cars going off. So for the 420s, pole position overall went the way of Justin Armstrong, and alongside is Gary Smith, who is the man that is the reigning 1600 champion, stepping up to the 420s for this year. Row 2 of the grid is Anthony Barnes. He's a former champion, 2021 champion, alongside Jonathan Mitchell, who has won 3 races so far this year, so he's going to be one to watch out for. Mark Stansfield, a former runner-up in the championship, lines up alongside Lewis Tootle on row 3, and it's Andy Perry and Russ Alivant who sit there on row 4. Andy Perry is a former champion in the 1600s back in 2020. Row 5 of the grid is Paul Begley and Ian Cowley, with Harry Senior and Matt Drew on row number 6, and row 7 is Jose Margalez, the Portuguese driver, alongside Matt Welsh. Philip Nagel and Mark Drain are there on row 8. Row 9 is Tom Heyman Joyce and Gary Tootle. And to at least give you the 10th row for the 420Rs, it's Richard Borton and Ian Dybel. That's the top 10 rows. Then if we look back to what's going on in the 1600cc cars, so that's the 310Rs, pole position for that is down on the 18th row of the grid, which is David Yates alongside Don Henschel. Row 2 for the 1600s is Caroline Everett alongside Will Rayson. Row 3 for the 1600s is David Baldwin and Ben Winrow. And row 4 for the 1600s is Charles Elliott and Jonathan Ems. The next row of the grid is Jake Poole and Rob Warner. Jake Poole is looking at the wheel of car number 710 to try and make a little bit of progress. Then it's Rob Good and Paul Setai, Stephen Clark, and young 18-year-old nowadays, isn't he? Sam May, who has raced around the Silverstone Grand Prix circuit before, but in something substantively less powerful than a Caterham 310R. Citroen C1. He's done a couple of 24-hour races here in those cars. So that's the way that the grid lines up for this 12th round of the championship. They are back on familiar soil, having had the previous 3 races at Mondello Park in Ireland over the course of the 8th and 9th of July. But Justin Armstrong, who finished 5th in the standings last year, his largely gold and red and yellow car sitting there on pole position. He's got the reigning 1600cc champion Gary Smith alongside. Gary's in the grey and the yellow car. Has claimed to win already this year in the 420R championship, has Gary. Anthony Barnes has claimed 2 wins. He's there on the 2nd row of the grid alongside Jonathan Mitchell, who's picked up 3 wins so far this year. And those are largely the most winningest drivers. When we look at where the wins have gone in the 1600cc category, David Yates has claimed 1 win, David Baldwin's claimed 3, Ben Winrow's claimed 3, and Stephen Clark has claimed some as well. But Stephen Clark, who is qualifying much further down than one would have expected, so he is down 24th row of the grid in this one. So watch out for Stephen Clark. After a poor qualifying, largely sort of blue and black with some red flashes to it, his car, so he'll be one to try and pick up on. So 2 separate classes, a colossal grid of cars, and we're about to go racing for the first time, a 30-minute race, the first of 2 30-minute races. It is a rolling start as well for the Spectrum Medical Toyo Tyres 7 Race Series, but it's almost that sort of gold leaf, isn't it, liveried car that sits there on pole position of Justin Armstrong. What might he be able to do? Can he scoop up his first win of the season so far? Justin Armstrong, who hasn't even been on the podium so far this season, hasn't done every single round, but his best finish overall is a 4th. Big long circuit, lots of slipstreaming, huge grid of Caterhams. What's not to like? 30 minutes on the clock, round 12 of the Spectrum Medical Toyo Tyres 7 Race Series is about to get going here at Silverstone on the Grand Prix circuit. The lights are on the gantry. Gary Smith and Justin Armstrong controlling the pace on the front row of the grid. Gary Smith in the grey car, Justin Armstrong in the gold and the red car. The lights are about to turn off any second now. And as they do, the pack charges its way up towards Copse Corner for the first time. So the 420s get going. About 20 seconds later, the 1600s will be on their way at the drop of the Union flag, which is being readied by our marshal on the starting gantry. But the leading pack already safely out of Copse Corner. and starting to propel themselves up towards Maggots and Beckett's for the first time. The 1600's getting ready to go. David Yates and Don Henschel on the front row of the grid for that one. David Yates is largely blue with white and black, and it's a very light blue for Don Henschel is the coloration of their particular cars. And as the Union flag drops, the 1600s or the 310Rs get away and are going, and it is by the look of things still David Yates that picks up the early lead in the 310R category at this stage. So they have all safely made it through Copse Corner, whilst the overall front runners are already propelling themselves down the Hanger Straight and up towards Stowe, and it's the light blue car of Jonathan Mitchell, 3 times a race winner, that picks up the lead. All of that slipstreaming allowing him to get the double, the treble, the quadruple toe down the straight for the first time, and it is him that goes through to pick up the lead of the race. Who's there in second place? It's Justin Armstrong that's there in second place. Looks as though that's Gary Smith that's there in third place, and Mark Stansfield I think is there in fourth place, with potentially Lewis Tootle there in fifth place actually. Lewis, who was 8th in the championship last year in the light green car. You can see them all weaving around to try and break the toe on each other. They'll certainly try and, for some of them, work together in the early stages and tow each other around to try and build the gap. It all gets a bit tight as they pinch almost the gap between them all as they head through Abbey. For the 1600s, there's locked brakes further back through the order. Now, was that Caroline Everett that was locking the brakes? Yes, it was, in fourth position. Might drop to fifth, actually. But out front, it is David Yates that leads the 310Rs in the early stages from Don Henschel. David Yates was runner-up in the 1600s a couple of seasons ago, but now it looks as though he's got Ben Winrow drawing himself to pick up the lead of the race yet. So Ben Winrow goes through to lead the way. Ben, who had an off at Snetterton last time out in qualifying and therefore had to swap to the other car which is available to him. So he briefly picks up the lead of the race. We also had one car running very, very wide there and rejoins the time. I think that was Rob Warner's car. Yeah, then snatches the brake at the wheel of his light green and orange machine. So I think everybody is safely through. Light blue and orange, I should say. I said light green, didn't I? So everybody's safely through the first lap. Anthony Barnes, Lewis Tootle, then the number 11 car of Andy Perry, all still together. They're fighting over something like, I would say, 5th, 6th, 7th at the moment, are they? Yes, it is. Yet 5th, 6th and 7th places. The lead trio just getting away very slightly, not by much, but for Jonathan Mitchell, Gary Smith and Justin Armstrong, they've got a little bit of daylight between themselves and the car of Mark Stansfield that sits in fourth place. But that is as they head through Maggots and Beckett's. Once they head out of Chapel Curve, the Mark Stansfield will pick up the tow from those around and should be able to edge himself back towards the lead trio, who all seem to be working together at the moment. 3 wide up towards Stowe Corner. Justin Armstrong goes through to pick up the lead of the race, and it is going to be Gary Smith into second. Jonathan Mitchell drops down into third, and this is going to be the case lap after lap after lap after lap as they all try and work with each other. They won't want to hold each other up. If one gets the tow, let them go by. The main thing is that you are there or thereabouts in the lead pack as you start the final lap, and ideally what you don't want to be doing is leading the race coming out of Aintree and down the Wellington Straight on the final lap, because you'll just get picked off. So Gary Smith, the reigning 1600cc champion, already a race winner in the 420Rs this year, picks up the lead of the race. And is it Anthony Barnes that's going to come through into second? No, he's going to sit there in third at the moment. The Dayglow orange rollover hoop for the Team Parker Racing prepared machine. You can see all of a sudden the top 3 that had broken away have all been caught by the pack behind once more, and Jonathan Mitchell, who was leading at the start of this lap, was down into fourth. He's back up to third as he sneaks up the inside through Village. And Anthony Barnes returns the favour at the next corner, which is the loop. So the light blue car of Jonathan Mitchell is going to have to hang it out all around the outside at Aintree if he wants to try and grab the place. They are absolutely wheel to wheel. Jonathan Mitchell runs a little bit wide, bounces over the curbs, but still is there or thereabouts in the mix. 1600s still going wheel to wheel. Ben Winrow still fighting away, the blue car with the red stripes down the centre of it. He's got David Yates still asking him a few questions as to who wants to be first and second of the 310Rs at the moment. Now this is for 31st backwards, the 310Rs. Don Henschel, by the look of things, has managed to go through and ahead of David Yates. So the light blue number 62 car of Don is now up into second position. David Yates drops down into third place. And is that Caroline Everett that's there in fourth? I think it is. Yeah, the blue car with the orange flashes to it does suggest that that's going to be Caroline Everett potentially that's there in fourth. No, she's there in sixth by the look of things, so we'll pick out who's there in fourth when they head back up into the braking area for Brooklands. We might have another change for the lead of the 310Rs. Ben Winrow looking to try and lead the way, but he has lost out to Don Henschel this time through. So Don Henschel picks up the lead of the 1600cc class. Ben Winrow drops down into second. Third is going to be the car of David Yates. And then it'll be, I think, the number 41 car of David Baldwin that's there in fourth place. So over the start-finish line, they all thread their way. So 31st backwards. Yeah, it is David Baldwin that's there in fourth position. Jake Paul's fifth. And Caroline Everett is no longer inside the top six in the 1600s because she's just been picked off on that lap by Rob Warner in the number 58 car, recovering after his moment where he went very wide going through Farm Curb on the previous lap. The 410s, though, are all together again, or 420s, I should say, for the overall lead of the race. Anthony Barnes out front and leading the way, but it's any one of, what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 cars, 11 cars for the lead of the race at the moment. They're forever hunting in packs. Anthony Barnes is, of course, then punching a hole in the air for everybody that's queuing up behind. The pole sitter of Justin Armstrong was leading the last time they came over the start-finish line, and he is now down in 6th position, I think, as they head round through Village and up towards the loop this time through. Andy Perry sneaks through and up the inside of Jonathan Mitchell, the number 11 car gaining a place over the 71. Jonathan Mitchell, remember, was the early race leader midway through the first lap. Up to third has come Mark Stansfield, and again, all of that slipstreaming now taking effect as they head down the Wellington straight, but I don't think anybody's quite close enough to shuffle the order too much. In towards the breaking out for Brooklands they all go. All very mindful that there's a long, long way to go in this race still. And they always say, you know, you can't win a race on the first corner. Well, in Caterham's, it's usually down to the last lap and usually the last corner as to who's going to get the run to the line and who's going to punch the toe, punch a hole in the air for everybody else. Now, Anthony Barnes is just getting away a little bit over the course of this lap, not by much. So over the start-finish line he goes. Fastest lap of the race to the race leader, Anthony Barnes. 2 minutes 22.976 from him. Means that the lead advantage is 0.8 of a second as they head on to lap number 4. So you can see that amount of daylight just growing between Anthony Barnes as a result of the hard work that he put in. Needs to be careful that he doesn't overwork the Toyo tyres, though, on these cars. There's a big old wiggle there from the car in second place, which is Mark Stansfield, the green car with the limey, sort of day-glow yellowy stripes down the centre of it. And there's also a little bit of debris on the side of the track there where a couple of cars have got a little bit close to each other. Now, Mark Stansfield was in second. Is he still going to be in second? No, we're 4 wide this time, heading up towards Stowe Corner. Jonathan Mitchell has got the inside line, and the 71 goes through. Mark Stansfield drops down into third position. Fourth place is going to be Gary Smith, who's there in fourth place, the reigning 310R champion. And these cars behind now can't afford to keep squabbling because Anthony Barnes has almost broken the toe on them. They are going to have to work together. 3 wide through club, wow, and they all avoid tripping over each other as well. So Justin Armstrong moves up into fourth position. Gary Smith is down into fifth and pushed offline a little bit. There was Andy Perry, who runs very wide and clatters over the dusty outer limits of the circuit there. Car gets a little bit sideways on him, and therefore it is the opportunity for the next of the cars to squeeze its way through, which is Ross Olivant, I think, the blue car with the green wheel arches to it. Jonathan Mitchell very, very squirrely under brakes as he tries to get the car anchored up and avoid clattering into the side of Mark Stansfield. Good driving, just about enough room between them all. Second and third still busy squabbling. Justin Armstrong still there in fourth place. Fifth place is the number 28 car, which is Harry Senior, who's there in fifth place. He's come from 11th on the grid and is still within the main pack. And what's going on in the 310Rs? Well, at the moment, Ben Winrow, together with David Yates, Don Henschel and Caroline Everett, are all still busy squabbling away. It's what, any one of 4 or 5 for the lead in the 310Rs at the moment, but it's Ben Winrow who is out front and leading that one, the man who's claimed 3 wins already so far this season. So we're nearly a third of the way through this race already. The front runners heading over the start-finish line, so this is going to be lap number 4 that is now completed, on to lap number 5, and there you can see Anthony Barnes has broken the toe. He's 2 seconds ahead of Jonathan Mitchell and Mark Stansfield, who are side by side through Copse Corner for second and third position. Eventually Jonathan Mitchell takes the advantage, but whilst they're squabbling, that is exactly what Anthony Barnes needs. He's just going to disappear off into the distance. They're going to have to work together. They've started squabbling way too early with 20 minutes to go. I'm sure they'll start to get the hint in a few moments' time when they see that race-leading Team Parker Racing number 4, Caterham, disappearing up the road that, yeah, right, OK, let's get our heads down now. We've had a bit of fun. We've had some playtime. Let's crack on, try and catch the next car ahead. So 4 fighting over what is 2nd, 3rd and 4th place as Justin Armstrong dives up the inside of Jonathan Mitchell heading in towards Stowe Corner. Pole-sitting car back through into 2nd place. Jonathan Mitchell down into 3rd. Mark Stansfield in 4th. The orange rollover hoop will tell you that it's Harry Senior who sits there in 5th place. And they are still, I would say, if anything, squabbling a bit too much at the moment. Sector times, is Anthony Barnes pulling away any more on this lap? No. Through the first sector, they have absolutely matched the race leader for pace. So it's still going to be around about 2 seconds, the gap from 1st to 2nd place. Jonathan Mitchell is having another nibble at Justin Armstrong for 2nd place and sneaks through up the inside as they head in towards Abbey. Gets the job done by the time they get towards Farm Corner. And are we going to have any more changes? Yeah, Harry Senior this time trying to brake as late as he can. Takes a big wide sweep in towards Village to see whether he might be able to do something as they head up towards the left-hander at the loop. But he's not going to be able to do it. A squeal of tyres in the background suggests something has happened, and that is JJ Magelheist that's had a problem, and the other car that he's got tangled up with is Ian Cowley. They both continue, bodywork having been shed in the case of Ian Cowley, the number 34 car. So for the 1600s, there's also been a sort out as well, because Ben Winrow all of a sudden has got no... Is that Ben Winrow? No, it is not Ben Winrow. That's the 58, I think, which is going to be Rob Warner. Has got no nose cone on his car. So that... They're not the most aerodynamic cars to start with, Caterhams, but when you've got an even bigger gap at the front of the car, you need to be careful, because all of that air will get underneath the bonnet area and could flick the bonnet up. Ben Winrow still leads the 310Rs, the 1600cc category at the moment. Only just, though, David Yates right behind him. And then just after that is going to be the next of the 1600cc cars, and that's the number 25 car there. So that's Stephen Clark, is it, that's now up into 3rd position. Yeah, it is. It's definitely the 25, isn't it? He's sitting right behind David Yates. So he has, just looking for him on the timing screen, I think worked his way through the order there. In fact, no, he's a lap down. So, yeah, he's amongst the front-running 310R cars, even though he's a lap down. Or has had a transponder issue, potentially. So that car is showing as being on 3 laps completed, whereas all the rest of the 310Rs are showing as 4 laps completed. So good little fight it is. Ben Winrow still out front and leading the way at this stage. So we're nearly halfway through this race now, 30-minute race, all having gone to plan for everybody. I don't think we've had a single retirement so far, other than into the pit lane has come number 53 that time through, I'm afraid to say. So we have lost Matt Welsh in towards the pit lane. Hopefully, whatever it is, they'll be able to get him sorted and back out. The 1600cc's are still at it. The 310Rs all together heading out of Copse Corner. Don Henschel almost tagging the back of one of his fellow competitors there, and has now dropped to 5th position in the race in the lighter blue car, whilst Ben Winrow is still leading the way from the number 15 car of David Yates. Then it's the 25 thereafter, which is going to be Stephen Clark. I think it's a transponder glitch in Stephen Clark's car, because we know that he qualified out of position and he was going to be one to watch. I'm sure he was there when the lights got going. I think there's just one lap that his transponder hasn't registered, so that's why he's showing as being a lap adrift, but I'm sure he's not. I'm sure he's involved in this lead battle as David Yates goes back to the lead of the 1600cc car class. So he picks up the lead of the 310Rs once more, whilst for the overall lead of the race, we've still got Anthony Barnes disappearing off into the distance. And now up into 2nd place, we've got Justin Armstrong, who's gone through and ahead of the light blue car of Jonathan Mitchell that time through. But Anthony Barnes is still building the advantage. He was another half a second quicker on the previous lap, but that time through, we've got a new fastest lap of the race. For the first time in a while, the lead advantage comes down, and it's the car that was in 2nd, but has now dropped to 3rd, Justin Armstrong, that set the fastest lap of the race. So maybe now Justin Armstrong and Jonathan Mitchell are going to work together in 2nd and 3rd place to see if they can close up the deficit that exists between the pair of them. Armstrong back to 2nd by the time they get towards Maggots and Beckett's. I did say there'd be plenty of overtaking in this one, but if anything, there's been more than you would expect, largely because they've been squabbling amongst themselves at the moment, and that's what's just allowed Anthony Barnes to break away. So he's on his own. We've got a pair fighting over second and third. By the look of things, we've got Mark Stansfield and Harry Senior fighting over fourth and fifth as Jonathan Mitchell dives back at the inside of Justin Armstrong. Back to second he goes. Is Harry Senior going to try around the outside of Mark Stansfield at Stowe? Yes, he does. The 28 car goes through and into fourth place. So Stansfield is down into fifth position at the moment. And then it's David Yates, followed by the blue and the green car, which will be the man who finished sixth in the championship last year, Ross Ollivant, who sits there sixth in the race at the moment. Ever more bits of Caterham bodywork being strewn around the circuit. Another frontal rear wing of a car way off the racing line and onto the runoff tarmac and the exit of Club Corner. Harry Senior trying to tee up another move to get back past Mark Stansfield. He got him at Stowe Corner, only to be overtaken again. They've also got to watch their mirrors as the number 11 of Andy Perry is looking to try and squeeze his way through. So the left-hander at the loop, they start to build the advantage again once more. Into the pit lane, we've had Don Henschel come in, so he was one of the cars that was running at the sharp end of the 310R category, so he has dropped away from this pack that he had been running with, which is still at the moment the 310Rs being led by Ben Winrow, but he's got David Yates absolutely with him. David Yates trying to go all the way around the outside at Stowe, and he's made it stick all the way around the outside to pick up the lead of the 310Rs. So Ben Winrow drops down to second in the 310Rs, and you've got Stephen Clark, who's third in 310Rs, and fourth at the moment is David Baldwin. Now, David's had 3 wins so far this season. Double waved yellow flags there at Club Corner, suggesting that somebody has had an off. It was a light blue car, couldn't quite tell who it was, and we've also got, I think now, the Sam May car having picked up a 5-second penalty for track limits. He is at the moment the only car that is showing us having picked up a track limit penalty, and that is, looks like 84, is it? Difficult to tell from that angle. That is off the circuit. So that is going no further in this race, I'm afraid to say. I'm looking through my grid sheet, which contains some 48 cars that qualified, as to exactly which one of the drivers that is that will be tumbling down through the order. So Ben Winrow under pressure for the lead of the 310Rs. Again, he's got the inside line as they head up towards the braking area for Brooklands Corner. David Yates sticking behind him at the moment. Then Stephen Clark, who, as we say, had a poor qualifying. He was only 13th quickest of the 1600cc cars, but he's worked his way through to the sharp end of this one. And I think that timing glitch has now been spotted by the timekeepers. The transponder stopped working midway through the race. That was the problem, so it didn't record one of the laps. They have now slotted him in, so absolutely he is not a lap down. He is fully involved in this squabble, as I thought, and is at the moment the number 25 car there in third. So 310Rs, 4 together for the lead of the race, heading out of Copse Corner. For the moment, they haven't quite rolled their sleeves up. I would say with about 3 minutes to go, maybe a lap and a half to go, that's when the working together starts to diminish and they start to slug it out and get themselves positioned for the final lap or the final sprint to the line. But at the moment, it is the pole sitter from the 310R category, David Yates, that's out front and leading as they head out of Chapel and onto the Hanger Straight. He's got sitting right in his slipstream Stephen Clark. Stephen Clark is feeling the pinch now from the car with the red stripe down the centre, which is Ben Winrow. Is he going to go back through to second, Ben, when they get to Stowe? No, Stephen Clark hands on to second. Ben Winrow's there in third place. Caroline Everett is just that little bit further adrift of these top 4 cars. She's fighting away for 5th in the category at the moment. But back into the yellow flag zone, so no overtaking as they head in towards the braking area for Club, down through the Vale, and then in towards the tight left-hander, and then the right-hander, which really opens up whilst our brilliant Silverstone marshals are still in the process of recovering that car that came to grief in the gravel trap. Now, is Stephen Clark going to hit the front in 1600s for the first time? No, he's not. It's still David Yates that leads the way as they flick their way through the right-hander at Abbey. So David Yates, Stephen Clark, Ben Winrow, and then the next of the cars just thereafter is going to be in the 1600 category David Baldwin, the number 41 car. For the overall lead of the race, though, Anthony Barnes is leading, but we've still got this brilliant squabble going on elsewhere down through the pack. So this will be Andy Perry trying to keep Mark Stansfield at bay. Ross Ollivant is trying to now go round the outside of the car that's two drivers right. And all of this is going to be for what I think will now be fourth overall in the race. We've got another penalty coming in, and this time it's going the way of the number 37 car of Tom Overton, who picks up the 5-second penalty for transgressing the circuit limits. Now, it does look as though Jonathan Mitchell and Justin Armstrong are now working together. They're trying to close that deficit on Anthony Barnes, but the lead advantage came out again last time through, so it climbed by another 0.6 of a second. It's up to nearly 3 seconds now between first and second place. And all of these squabbles that we can see now in front of us are for sort of 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th and 11th place backwards. Russ Ollivant gets in towards the tail end of one of the cars there that's around him, clatters into the back of the car, bodywork flies up. Lewis Tootle also has problems and has a spin, and that's all down through the village and the loop where all of that happened. And that does mean then that Lewis Tootle, who was hoping for something good here, was running 8th in the championship last year, was Lewis Tootle, and is running down in 11th this year, not having done the full championship season, but it's not quite going to be. There's also more dramas as well, with a brief spin for Gary Tootle at the end of the straight. So the Tootle family not having a good lap this time through, Lewis having his issue, and then Gary having a spin down at Brooklands. And that has now split some of the squabbles slightly. Anthony Barnes leads by 2.8 seconds. This is the number 11 car of Andy Perry, with Harry Senior right behind him. This will be for 5th and 6th position. Russ Ollivant is just off those and is in the process of trying to defend as best as he possibly can. But it is going to be, by the look of things, all the way down towards the checkered flag. We've still got 8 minutes of this squabbling still to go, when we're now keeping an eye on what's going on back to the 310s once more. David Yates, with his hands rather full, trying to keep 3 times a race winner Stephen Clark behind him. David Yates has only had 1 win so far this season. Runs a little bit wide coming out of the loop. Is that the opportunity for Stephen Clark to sneak through? Not quite when they get towards Aintree Corner. So David Yates still hangs on to the lead of the 310Rs at the moment. Stephen Clark blends out of the throttle and drops to 3rd place, I think, there, tactically, which means up to 2nd now in the 310Rs. There will have been a shuffle, and that is going to be the car of David Baldwin that's now back up into 2nd in the 310Rs. David's also had 3 wins so far this season. Ben Winrow almost runs out of room there. There's plenty of real estate here at Silverstone, but almost ran wide and into the gravel trap at Luffield there. So he needs to be careful. That was beyond the circuit limits, and he needs to watch out here because he might lose a place. So David Baldwin has picked up the lead of the 310Rs at the moment. David Yates drops down into 2nd place. Stephen Clark is there in 3rd position, but you can see there's still a pack of cars behind that, when they start to squabble, are absolutely going to be there. And that still includes the noseless car of Rob Warner, which is going really, really well, actually, that light blue and orange car. Despite the fact that it lost the nose cone several laps ago, it's still more than on terms with the lead pack, and that's exactly where you want to be. So down the Hanger Straight, David Yates punching a hole in the air for David Baldwin, who's going to slipstream his way back into the lead of the race, only potentially to lose it as Stephen Clark gets the slipstream. And is Stephen Clark going to go back through to the lead? Yep, from 3rd in the 1600cc class, coming out of Chapel and onto the Hanger Straight. He's up to the lead of it. That's the effect that the tow and the slipstream has in these cars. So he leads as they head through the Vale and into the braking area for Club. It's any one of 6 you want for the lead of the 310R category, and I would almost include maybe any one of 7 that you like as well, because edging ever closer is the next car in the background as well, which is the Dalo Green car, and that will be Paul Setai. Mark Farmer, former British GT racer, has picked up a penalty as well for transgressing the circuit limits. He used to race an Aston Martin in the British GT Championship, but first cut his teeth in Caterhams and has returned back to the fold once more. Chatting to him earlier on this season, thoroughly enjoying the competitiveness of the Toyo Tyres 7 Race Series, supported by Spectrum Medical for this weekend, and thoroughly enjoying I would imagine in the caterhams, a much cheaper repair bill. So onto the hanger straight go the top 6 in the 1600 category. They've almost sort of got themselves into 2 packs of 3 for the moment. That was the case down at the bottom of the straight. By the time they get to the end of the straight, that's certainly not the case. So it's any one of 6, and including Paul Setai, any one of 7 you like for the lead in the 1600s. But it is still the number 41 car of David Baldwin that leads the way from David Yates, Stephen Clark, Ben Winrow, then the car with the nose missing, which is going to be Rob Warner, Caroline Everett, and then Paul Setai in the Dayglow green car. So 7 for the lead of the 310R category. Elsewhere down through the order, there is Mark Farmer. He is having a busy old race actually at the wheel of number 14 car. Qualified way out of position from where I thought Mark Farmer would be. He was down in 23rd position for a driver that arguably should have been in the top sort of half dozen or 10 at least. And at the moment, that number 14 car is in 9th position, or was at least at the beginning of this lap. So it's a great little fight. I think this is 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th, 15th, all the way backwards to someone like Philip Nagel, who's at the tail end of this little squabble. So down the Wellington straight they all go. Mark Farmer trying to attack the car that he's just lost the place to. They head up towards Brooklands. He's on the outside line. Can he squeeze his way through? The answer is, well, he's going to try all the way around the outside. Is it going to work? The answer is no, not quite. Not at least on this occasion. But a brilliant fight it is. That's the one good thing about Toyo Tyres 7's race series. There is always somebody to race with. They have their main UK season, which started at Donington Park with a treble header over the course of the middle of April. They conclude their UK season at Donington Park, but on the Grand Prix circuit on the 16th and 17th of September. And then from there, there'll be a good chunk of the cars and the drivers and their families as well will go over and join the Portuguese contingent with a series of races that take place not just in Portugal but in southern Spain as well. And that is a great opportunity to go out and race on some different circuits, enjoy some winter sunshine, and the usual end of season awards take place over the course of that weekend as well. So back towards what's going on in the 420s. We haven't picked up on it for a while, but this is Gary Smith that is working away at the moment with Andy Perry. Russ Olivant is in there. Harry Senior tries to jink to the inside of both and squeeze his way up the inside heading in towards Stowe, but then thinks discretion is the better part of valour with 2.5 minutes to go. So the black car with the orange rollover hoop is at the moment just going to sit behind, and all of these cars are fighting over 4th, 5th, 6th and 7th, because the lead 3 in 410Rs are long gone, and in particular the leader Anthony Barnes, who still leads by, in Caterham terms, a country mile, 3.3 seconds. The fight for, 8th, 9th backwards continues. This is the fight for 4th, 5th, 6th and 7th, I think. Mark Stansfield ahead of Harry Senior, then Andy Perry, followed by the blue car with the green flashes to it, which is Ross Olivant. Now Mark Stansfield under pressure. Harry Senior takes a wide line in towards Village. What's he going to do on the exit? Is he going to try anything at the loop? The answer is no, not on this occasion. He'll just sit behind him. And the key thing is get cleanly out of the loop, because you carry all of that momentum through the flat out Aintree and all the way down the Wellington straight. The fight for 2nd and 3rd isn't fully resolved yet either. Jonathan Mitchell and the pole sitter, remember, Justin Armstrong, are still very much together for 2nd and 3rd place, and they will be heading on to their final lap of the race this time through as well. So it takes 2 minutes and 22 seconds to do a lap. Already over the start-finish line, any second will come Anthony Barnes, and he sets the fastest lap of the race that time through, 2 minutes 22.586, so no drop off on his Toyo tyres, working beautifully well. For the 1600s, they are heading up towards Stowe Corner for the penultimate time, and they're 3 wide. Is Ben Winrow going to thread the needle? No, he's not. It's still the number 41 car of David Baldwin that leads in the 310R category. Ben Winrow fighting away with David Yates as to who at the moment wants to be in 2nd and 3rd place. Don't rule out Caroline Everett in the back. Lock brakes from Ben Winrow heading in towards Club Corner. Also the number 25 car of Stephen Clark is in the mix as well. So it's sort of 5, 6, yeah, you could almost argue 7 still, because Paul Setai is there in 6th place. And down to 7th now has gone the noseless car of Rob Warner. And then we've got another car closing in off the back of that. And is that Scott Parker, I wonder? Let's have a quick look. No, it is not. So who is that is closing in? That will be the number 83 car, I think, of Jonathan Ems that's beginning to close in. So it's still not fully resolved as yet. Won't be even next time when they get to this part of the circuit, because really it will be the Wellington Straight or maybe the run to the line that's going to decide as to who's going to pick up top honours, whether it be in the 420Rs or the 310Rs in what is round 12 of the 2023 Toyo Tyres 7 Race Series, supported by Spectrum Medical this weekend. Down the Wellington Straight once more they'll go. And is Ben Winrow going to hit the front in the 1600cc category? No, he's not. It's still David Baldwin that hangs on to it for the moment. However, there's problems further back. Paul Setai gets together with Rob Warner. Brief spins for both. They will both continue. Clock has ticked to 0, and Anthony Barnes is well around his final lap in this one, and the number 4 car is surely on for win number 3 of the championship season. Anthony Barnes, here he comes up the Wellington Straight now, in towards the braking area for Brooklands. He's got himself amongst some of the slower 1600cc cars, another one of which is noseless at the moment. But for Anthony Barnes, he is on course for win number 3 of the season. He won 2 of the 3 races that we had at Snetterton on the triple header. Well, he is now about to scoop up win number 3 of the championship season here at Silverstone in the first of our 2 races that we've got for the Spectrum Medical Toyo Tyres 7 Race Series. Anthony Barnes claims the win. It's going to be Jonathan Mitchell and Justin Armstrong together for second, but it's Justin Armstrong that sneaks second by 0.2 of a second in the end from Jonathan Mitchell, who finishes in 3rd. And who's going to finish in 4th, because that's the next batch of cars that are coming towards us. This is the lead fight up towards Stowe Corner on the final lap for the 1600cc category. Finishing in 4th is Mark Stanfield from Russ Oliphant, Harry Senior and Andy Perry, so that sorts out the top 7. But back to the 1600s, hopefully we can pick up on what's going on, because they'll be heading down in towards the Vale, and it is David Baldwin that leads the 1600s, but only just from Stephen Clark. Ben Winrow is wheel to wheel with David Yates. And are we going to see David Baldwin scoop up win number 4 of the season? Or might we see Stephen Clark maybe scoop up his 4th win of the season? Again, they're still weaving from side to side to try and break the toe on each other. Ben Winrow has also taken 3 wins for the year, so could he scoop up his 4th win of the season? They all seem to be stuck on 3 wins at the moment. And as they then thread their way out of Albion Farm and in towards the heavy braking area for Village Corner, I think David Baldwin has probably just about done enough. He's going to have a little bit of daylight heading onto the Wellington Straight, and that is exactly what he will want, because Stephen Clark, without question, will pick up the toe, but he's not, I don't think, going to be quite close enough when they get into the braking area for Brooklands, so we'll need a good run through Brooklands and Luffield to try and mount a challenge to wrestle the lead of the race away on the run to the flag. Now, is he going to be close enough heading in towards the braking area for Brooklands? No, he'll be too far back. He has gained, though. The amount of daylight between 1st and 2nd has diminished as they turn their way for the final time round through the left-hander at Brooklands. Up towards Luffield comes David Baldwin. Be patient on the throttle, concentrate on the exit. Stephen Clark is going to get a good run towards the line and might be there or thereabouts when they head towards the checkered flag. He's closing, ever closing, but I think David Baldwin, by the skin of his teeth, is just about going to do it. Yeah, over the start-finish line, David Baldwin comes and will finish in 26th position overall in the race, but will scoop up his 4th win in the 310R category from the car of Stephen Clark, who was 2nd in the 1600cc category. And Ben Winrow will complete that podium ahead of David Yates, Caroline Everett, and then it was the orange and black car in the end of Jonathan Ems that was 6th in the 1600cc car. So 49 cars started that race. Brilliant racing amongst them all. Fantastic job again done by our directors and camera team to pick up what were some of the fantastic battles throughout that. And the great thing is, you know what, we can do it all again later on this afternoon, because we've got round 13 of the Toyo Tyres 7's Race Series coming up later on, supported by Spectrum Medical. Let's confirm the results for you then. Round 12 of the championship, and here at Silverstone, Anthony Barnes claims the win from Justin Armstrong in 2nd place and Jonathan Mitchell in 3rd. Mark Stansfield was there in 4th, ahead of Ross Oliphant and Harry Senior, with Andy Perry, Tom Heyman Joyce, Gary Tootle there in 9th place, and completing the top 10, it was the number 99 car of Cameron Cooper, who came from 28th on the grid, so good run from him. Didn't see much of him in the end. Mark Farmer was involved in that good battle, wasn't he? He came through to finish in 12th place, but you could see all of the other cars behind him were all busy squabbling away. We had spins in 16th place for JJ Margelheis and Lewis Tootle, who finished 16th and 17th, respectively, with Marco Egan there in 19th place, and Dolan wraps up the top 20. Then as we head outside of the top 20, you need to look towards 26th position, and that is David Baldwin, who was the winner of the Caterham 310R category for the 1600cc cars. But what a battle he was involved with Stephen Clark, who finished just behind him in the end, of Ben Winrow, who in 28th place will complete the 310R podium. Then, as we head outside of the top 30, down towards 40th position, all of those cars all still remained very much on the lead lap as well. It was only cars from 41st backwards that were a lap down, and there were a few cars we lost along the way. From 45th place, Paul Begley backwards, were all cars that didn't take the checkered flag. The fastest lap of the race goes to Anthony Barnes, 2 minutes 22.586. And that's round 12 of the Toyo Tyres 7th race series, supported for this weekend by Spectrum Medical. Thank you for joining us for round 12, but why not tune back in again around about 3:30 this afternoon? We will bring you round 13 from Silverstone. So from everybody here at the circuit, until next time, till later on today, goodbye.